Hello and welcome along to the return of our niche experiment series for FM22. As the title and thumbnail gives away, we're heading over to Northern Ireland, and this one is going to take a little bit of explaining. So for those of you that weren't here last year and didn't see some of the things we did with Welsh football in our niche experiments, we don't do the traditional let's give this side £1 billion, let's give this player all 20 attributes and see what happens, because we know what the likely outcome of those are. What we do in this series is try and shine a light on things that I genuinely like to know the answer to, whether certain staggered changes can make an impact in the game. So we're going to be looking today at the Northern Irish leagues, and we are going to be putting a TV deal structure in place that mirrors the one we have in English football. So I'm not just talking about giving the Premier League TV deal to the Northern Irish teams and seeing what happens. We've worked through all of the playable pyramid and made it as realistic as possible. So if you like the sound of that and you're looking forward to seeing what happens to the Irish League with English TV money, then please do put a thumbs up on the video, subscribe down below for daily FM22 content. If you're a regular on the channel, you'll know it's been an absolutely crazy week, and we're finishing it with a Sunday doubleheader in style. We've got another new top 3 coming later today, and it's one of my favourites in the series so far. You can find the full playlist in the eye above, as well as all the links to our key series. You can support the show as a channel member down below, and any links you can't find up there will be down in the description below. But let's get on to Northern Ireland and this experiment. We're going to have a look, once we've set it up, at 1 year and 5 years in the future initially. If it looks good or looks interesting, we'll carry on for 10 or 15 years after in a future episode. But let's head over to the FM22 editor and show you in detail exactly what I've done. Right then, into the editor and into the advanced nation rules to show you what I've set up. But before we do that, let me talk you through my thinking behind this challenge. Those of you that were here last year will remember we did one with Wales relating to finances, but we gave teams an instant hit of money. It wasn't like the £1 billion thing or anything like that, but it was a staggered amount based on their reputation through the league. And what we saw was initial improvement, whether it was in facilities, spending money on players, investment generally. But then as soon as that initial money went, everything dried up, the league reverted to type, the reputations went down, and very few teams benefited long term. So what I wanted to do here was create an effect where there was money constantly coming in and always improving the bank balances of these clubs to see just how quick they invest it, how well they invest it, whether there's a pattern across the whole nation, and whether it can start to progress. Because let's look at real life as an example. If Northern Ireland from next season got the English TV deal, players would start to flock to go there eventually and take the money. We've seen it with other leagues that have popped up in recent decades and years. So what I want to know is, will that happen in Northern Ireland? And to make sure that we don't create this huge disparity between the top tier and the rest, or an even bigger one than there should be, we have also matched the second and third tier to the Championship and League One. So we're still going to see money going into those leagues, but at what point is the cut going to be? In Northern Ireland's third tier, where they're going to have the League One TV deal, it's about $500,000. Are they going to be able to then turn professional? Whereas the top tier sides, I'd imagine, could do it straight away. So let's have a look at Northern Ireland. We are going to start with the top tier so I can show you what we've implemented. Now, it's a little bit tougher to set up because it's got a league split and all of that, but I have tested it and checked it works. If we look at the Danske Bank Premiership, we have given it everything that the TV money provides financially for the Premier League. So that starts, if we go to the league stages, with this prize money. So the team that finishes top of the Northern Irish Premiership in our experiment, rather than getting the £50,000 they currently do in real life, they will receive £38,265,360, just as the top team in the Premier League does. And working its way down, the top 12 teams in the Premier League get this prize money, and we've given that to the 12 teams in the Northern Irish Premiership. So that's part one of ensuring that each year there's a good amount of money going based on merit. However, we've also had to deal with the money as an overall. So let's go down to that section here. The initial TV deal in Northern Ireland, rather than being the few thousand that it currently is now, is going to be £80,422,558, as it is in the English Premier League at the moment. So that is the money that the clubs are guaranteed regardless of whether their games get selected for TV. However, for the TV money per match, which I have left at the 50 games that currently get shown in Northern Ireland, rather than the 200 odd in the Premier League, is going to be 2.324 million per match for sides that have their games shown on TV. So you'd like to think that over a number of years, that's going to make a huge difference and increase to their bank balances. But how's it going to get invested? Will they have a big enough reputation to be able to invest it? Or are they going to get caught with massive bank balances and nothing they can actually do? Something that wouldn't happen in real life, but we've seen before might happen in FM. So let's move down to the second tier, just so I can prove to you what we've done. If we go to the Championship, which is the second tier of Northern Irish football, we've given it the same as the English Championship. So not too much in terms of prize money there, because that's very differently worked in the EFL. However, if we go to the money, the initial TV deal just shy of £4 million, exactly what it is in the English Championship at the moment. And then finally, if we go down to the lowest playable league in Northern Ireland, which is the third tier, the Intermediate League has been given the same TV deal as League One in England. Now, that's going to be where the cut-off point is, I think, because the money for that is $444,000 per season per team. And that being spread out is probably not going to be enough to initially take that big step. So I'm wondering where the cut-off point will be. I think it probably is going to be there. But what I also want to know is at what point does that money build up enough to allow the third tier teams to become pro? Or are they going to invest it in facilities before that, or players perhaps, and stop themselves from going pro? So many questions I want to know the answer to. That is how we've set it up to work out. So let's head over to Football Manager 1 year in the future to see what the initial impact is before skipping ahead 5 years. Back in a moment. And here we are on the 1st of July 2022. We're going to go and see what's happened in the top 3 tiers. I think we're going to start initially on the job screen as if we were making a new manager, just so we can see what teams have turned pro and what the facilities are like. Then we'll go and have a look at some of the individual clubs and the league pyramid to see what's been going on. Of course, I want to know what size the transfers are. I'm not expecting fireworks first season. I'm expecting more of the effects to be off the pitch. But we'll wait and see if I'm right or wrong. So let's go in as if we were adding a new manager and see what Irish football looks like now. Okay, we're at the top tier of Northern Ireland, and immediately we start on Ballymena United. One of the semi-pro teams at the start have gone pro. Now, they have got into Europe, so they might have had success elsewhere. Training facilities and that's still about the same, but they probably wouldn't have been upgraded yet, even if it was planned. But the club is rich, so the money is definitely having an impact. They've suddenly been hit with 100 million over a year. Of course, they're going to be in a great position, but they're professional. Let's move down the rest of the league. Carrick Rangers, professional. Cliftonville, professional. Right, the whole league's gone pro because Carrick are one of the smaller sides. So there are a couple where the facilities are starting to change as well. But every team, including those that already were, are professional, are rich. We've got a promoted side, also professional. So immediately, we've seen every side turn professional. How quickly will that make an impact? Or will the reputation ultimately determine the lack of development? That's what I want to know a few years down the line. If we go to the Championship, they seem to have gone professional as well. Let's just move down the league here. All professional so far, apart from Bangor. But did they start in the third tier? Let's have a look. Yes, they got promoted last season. So all the sides that started in the second tier with the Championship TV money, they've gone professional. The sides that were in the third tier, Bangor and Distillery, semi-professional still. So it's not had quite as quick an impact with just the $500,000 in the league below. But everyone else pro. Dungannon have come down, they're still professional. So we're not hugely surprised by that. But in the third tier, I'd suggest if the promoted sides haven't gone, then surely everyone else is still semi-pro. They are. But there's a lot of money coming in, secure finances across the board. One's gone professional there at Knockbrader, so some of them choosing to. Or did they come down? Let's have a look. If we go to the general, they were relegated, right? So all the sides that started in the top 2 tiers are professional, and all the sides that started in the third tier are semi-professional. That's the initial bit out the way. What I want to go and do now is look at some of the individual clubs, see where teams finished and what sort of transfer fees we've got. Is the investment purely off the pitch, or is it drip feeding into the transfers? Let's go and have a look. So first thing to note for the Irish Prem is the league's reputation is moving up a little bit. Linfield won the league again, but maybe we'll start to see them do a bit better in Europe. That's what we're hoping for over the next few years. If we have a look at how they finished last season, Linfield and Glentoran, 2 of the sides that are professional at the start. But then Coleraine and Ballymena winning the Cup and winning a Europa playoff, Glenavon missing out despite finishing third, and Larne, the other professional side, not getting anywhere either. Let's have a look at the transfers though. I'm really interested in that. So this season, the window's only opened a few days ago. All domestic transfers, but little transfer fees in there. Let's look at the first season though. Right, okay. There's some fairly big deals, much bigger than we'd normally see in the Irish League. But most of them are going out of the club or coming into 2 or 3 sides. There's still a lot of domestic transfers between Northern Ireland or from the Irish League to the Republic of Ireland. But there's definitely a bit more money involved. And there are some players making a move from the EFL, albeit younger ones with Irish heritage. So maybe not the fireworks we were expecting, but little bits of news there and little bits of encouragement. Let's go and have a look at Linfield, our champions, and see if anything in particular stands out. So firstly, they're professional now. They've still got David Healy in charge. They've still got a fairly similar squad. Are the wages spiralling at all, or are they fairly similar as well? If we go to the contracts, nothing too big. So just over £1,000 a week, not far off what it was anyway. There's no big changes yet on that front. So I think they're the sort of things that we'll start to see at 5 years. Maybe we'll see some surprises. In terms of Europe, they're in the Champions League qualifying this year. They got to the playoff last year but didn't get into the group stages. I guess that's probably because they've not had the transfers in time. So let's skip ahead to 5 years in the future. I think that's where we're going to start to see some more change. But let me know initially what you thought of that. Any other things you'd like to see in future episodes as we go ahead to 5 years, our final part of today's one. And here we are, 2026, July the 14th, 2 days after the World Cup finishes. But we won't worry about that stuff for now. We are fully focused on Northern Ireland. So let's go and do exactly the same again and see what state the finances are at, and more importantly, what state the facilities and stadiums are at. Well then, starting with Ballymena, very similar thing. Rich, professional. The facilities have taken an upgrade, both from basic to adequate, so that's a good couple of upgrades, isn't it? They're still in the Europa Conference, but there's not much change on the stadium front, and that's something we saw was a struggle in Wales, no matter how much money we gave it, because the reputation meant they weren't filling the stadium. It took so much time to get that on board. Let's have a look though at Carrick, a move down. Again, average facilities, that seems to be the area where most of the investment is coming. Cliftonville, good and great facilities. Big steps up there. Coleraine, average. Crusaders, good and great. Dungannon, adequate across the board. Glenavon, excellent and great. And they're in the Europa Conference, so they're focusing on facilities. Is it because they've got the club culture right and for developing players? I imagine that might be the difference there. But all still pro, all rich, and lots of money invested behind the scenes. Apart from Glentoran, who have still got below average. Institute, adequate across the board. Larne, great and good. Linfield, one of the lower ones, which I wouldn't have expected, but maybe they're investing in their players from elsewhere. And Portadown, good across the board. So lots of improvement on that front. Facilities going up, stadiums not changing, money still at the club. So it looks like they've not blown it all on transfer fees or whatever, because they're all still rich. If we go down to the second tier, what are they like here? All professional. And the facilities, again, much improved. A lot of them focusing on the youth ones, which are actually better than the senior training facilities. So maybe they're planning on becoming feeder clubs and making their money that way. A few that are rich are mostly ones that have got secure finances. So I'm guessing the ones that are rich have maybe been in the top tier. We saw Loughborough had come up first season. Once you've had 100 million once, you're fine, aren't you? Newry, professional, rich. Portstewart, their facilities have not improved, but I wonder if they're a side who are third tier most of the time. Let's have a look at their general. Right, so they've just come up for the first time. So it seems that the ones that were in the third tier still haven't got quite enough money to push on. But all of the others looking really good. Excellent facilities for Warren Point, who obviously spent a while in the top tier. But let's move on to the third division, because it seems like that's where the real big money is running out. So Bangor had been in the second tier, as had Distillery. That maybe explains the slight improvements in the youth facilities. We've got a bit of a mix here actually. Most of the teams are professional, but then there's 3 that are still semi-pro. But facilities are still improving, so it seems like there's sort of mixed priorities across the board here. some going through takeover processes which are maybe slowing things down, and of course some like Donegal Celtic didn't start in the playable league, so we have to give them leeway. But I'm really intrigued to see that some of the teams in the third tier still aren't pro, despite 5 years of £500,000. It can only be ones that have dropped out the leagues. But let's go and have a look at the transfer fees across the board and maybe see some progress on the European and reputation front. Well, big progress from the league in terms of reputation, but after 5 years, it's still below the likes of Scottish League One. So that would suggest it hasn't gone absolutely mad, but it is improving. And that's something that makes me want to continue to look in the future, because after 10, 15, 20 years, can they build it like a proper builder nation? Because the money is still going to be coming in. I'm going to actually take over one of the clubs before the end just to see how much money they've got. But Linfield, the dominant force, let's have a look at the transfer fees. Okay, so not huge amounts again, but you can see a little shift towards the bottom there. EFL players that are out of contract are now starting to consider clubs in Northern Ireland a lot more, because the likes of Brooklyn Alunga have not got any Irish descent in them. So they are players that are, say, choosing to play either National League football or to come over and play in the Irish Prem, and they're choosing this. So that's a good sign. Let's look at the previous years for transfer fees. Right, we've got $250,000 the year before, but this is largely the problem. They're still mainly domestic transfers, and they're younger players as well, so not ones where we're going to get immediate impact. However, Linfield have signed Paul Smith from Leyton Orient, who is an experienced Irish international. They've got Chem Campbell coming from Grimsby, Welsh player. That's quite impressive. And I can also see a few very experienced Northern Irish players like Tom Flanagan at 34 and Josh McGuinness at 35 coming back to Northern Irish football. So that seems to be another little facet of it. But they're not able to get the ones at peak age yet. They're not able to get active internationals who are regularly involved. And that would probably be the point that tips them over. So let's go back a further year. Same sort of region in terms of transfers, but most clubs still working on that domestic scouting and not able to push out and sign players from elsewhere. Again, the year before, 200 grand. We're seeing a gradual increase, in fairness. Maybe that's matching the increase in reputation and perhaps suggest better signs for the future. Let's go back and have a look at the second tier though, because I want to see if the fees match up there. They do a little bit. We're talking about 200 grand, 100 the next year, 200 the year after. But when we get down to the second tier, they're virtually all between Northern Irish clubs. They've not got their scouting range elsewhere. They're not signing players from England, from Scotland, even from the Republic in the most part. They're all Northern Ireland to Northern Ireland. A few non-league players popping up, but not really anything of note. And then in the third tier, we're still largely dealing in free transfers and nominal fees. So the money just hasn't filtered down the same way. And that's because we're not seeing at the 5-year point that big increase in facilities and reputation further down. Once we get that and they start to get some transfer fees for their players, that's maybe when things start to progress on that front. But for now, the focus probably is on the top tier and seeing if it can increase its reputation through Europe. So let's go back up to the top, and we're going to look at Linfield, who have been the champions most years, and see what they've been doing. I'll have a look to see what wages their players are on as well, what types of contracts, and who their best players are. If we have a look though at the schedule, let's see how they've done in Europe. They're in Champions League qualifying this year and they've won the first round convincingly. Last year they missed out entirely, just had a bizarre year where they didn't win the title and then didn't get into Europe. The year before that, Europa Conference group stages. That's a good sign. Didn't get through or many points, but they got there. Year before that, Europa Conference group stages. A notable win against Lechia as well. Year before that, third qualifying round in the Europa Conference, and the year before that, fourth qualifying round. That was the first season, which we saw last time. So steady progress and fairly consistent, bar that one silly year. Let's look at Glentoran, who were the other league winners. They have had a win in first qualifying this year. Last year they went out at the first attempt both times. So if it's not Linfield, there's definitely trouble. Let's have a look at the wages being paid by the top club in the country. Senior squad. No. What on earth is going on? The reason I say that, you might not recognise it. There are 4 players at the top on massive money, which you might think, no biggie, what's the problem? They're all original Northern Irish players. 73 grand a week for Brad Lyons. He's an average Northern Irish player at 29, so they're losing their sale value for these players by having them on ridiculous contracts. That's just really, really bizarre. And the fact that it's only 4 players and not the whole squad. I really don't get that. I'm going to have to look at the second club, Glentoran, now, just to see if that's matched across the league. They have got, same thing, 4 of their players on massive money. I really don't understand that. It seems so bizarre. It's not the whole squad or the whole first team. It's just 3 or 4 random original players that have suddenly catapulted onto astronomical money. Any explanations for that, let me know down in the comments, but that is one of the most bizarre things we've seen out of this. At the 5-year point, I'm really intrigued because it doesn't look like the league has reached its ceiling or it's made massive progress, but it is definitely developing slowly but surely. Let me know what else you'd like to see down in the comments. We will have a look. I'm going to go another week if you're happy to see it and show 10 and 15 years in the future as well. But let me, before we finish, just take over a club and see exactly how much money's in the bank, because that is going to be telling as to whether they can invest or their reputation is holding them back. So we have taken over Linfield, and despite all of the changes to regular European football, they're only a 2-star reputation side. The Irish Prem in itself, again, not developing to that next level. It's still stuck reputation-wise with minor improvement. And I think that's what's holding this league back, is that the money isn't being pushed out on a big signing, a marquee player. And as a result, the league isn't developing. Because if we have a look at the bank balance, Jesus, it's 450 million. Look at that, the transfer budget is 173 million. There's £2.5 million a week in wage budget. But they can't spend it because they're not finding good enough players. And they're not finding players that want to join. So what I'm going to do, let's just go to the player search and see the best players that are available for this club without changing the recruitment package, which is the UK and Ireland. So doubtful for transfers, and let's put them in value order. Right, so they are able, if they want to push the boat out, to sign young players from championship teams in England or more established players from sort of League 1 and League 2 teams, but they're not going out for it. And that's the bit I don't really get. So definitely reputation holding things back. But when you see 16-year-olds like Warren Jones, who's a young superstar at Reading, go and nick him while he's young and develop him into a star. That's what I want to see. So the next few years are going to be really telling for this save. Linfield in the best position of the Northern Irish sides, but there's definitely that disconnect where reputation is holding back extreme financial power, and that's something that you probably wouldn't see in real life. A competition building from scratch or even from lower down the pyramid with massive money would be able to make further inroads than this has made, in my opinion. So let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you want to see another 5 and 10 years in the future? If you did enjoy the episode, some interesting results, particularly on the wages front, then please do chuck a thumbs up on it. Subscribe down below for daily FM22 content. Remember to keep your eyes peeled later today for another episode of Top 3. You can find a full playlist of that in the eye above, as well as links to some of our long-term stories. You can find anything else that's not there in the description down below. A massive thank you for watching as always. But above my head now is one of our recent videos. Please do check it out, and I'll see you back here this time next week for part 2 of our Northern Irish TV money experiment.